My name is Dakota Hale, 29 years old IT project manager, the one who's been bankrolling my family for years. At the family dinner in our brownstone in Cincinnati, Ohio, my dad was hyping up the Florida trip set for 2 weeks out. He listed the flights, the beachfront hotel, the rental car, all booked, all paid for. Then, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "This is a family trip, Dakota. You're not invited." My older brother let out a smug little laugh, that half snort, half chuckle that says he'd won before the game even started. Mom stared down at her mashed potatoes. Aunt Nan gave a small approving nod like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't react. I finished my meal, drove back to my downtown apartment, opened the airline app, and wiped every reservation clean. Gone. 2 hours later, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. They were already at the gate. No boarding passes, no hotel rooms. Just frantic voicemails and texts piling up. I opened Venmo, sent exactly $1, and typed more than enough. If you've ever been the family ATM, the one who gets mocked the moment you stop paying, hit like and subscribe. Trust me, you're not ready for what comes next. A week after the airport chaos, Dad showed up at my door at 11 p.m. I had been funding their Florida trips every winter for the past 3 years, and it started small, or at least that's what I told myself. The first year, I booked 4 round-trip tickets from Cincinnati to Orlando, a modest condo 2 miles from Disney, and a 7-day minivan rental. Park hopper passes too. The total hit $4,200. I transferred it from my savings the day after Thanksgiving. They left the morning after Christmas. I stayed in my apartment crunching numbers on a client report due New Year's Eve. When they returned, Mom sent a single group text a photo of the 4 of them in front of Cinderella's castle captioned, "Magical Week, no tag. No thank you. Just the photo." The next winter I went bigger. I found a beachfront hotel in Clearwater with a balcony overlooking the Gulf. 6 nights full breakfast buffet, 2 umbrellas reserved daily. I added a prepaid visa with $500 for dinners and souvenirs. Another $4,800 gone. 2 days before departure, Dad called while I was in a stand-up meeting. "We talked it over," he said, voice flat. "This one's just the immediate family, Dakota. You've got that big project launch right." I said yes. I still sent the money. They posted videos of Jaden Hale, 25, and still sleeping in the basement bodyboarding at sunset. The headset I bought him for his birthday, $400, was visible in half the clips. Last year was the villa. Naples. Private pool, 4 bedrooms, golf cart, in-house chef for 2 dinners. 8 days total. I paid $6,100 before they even packed. A month out, Mom texted during my lunch break, "Honey, your calendar looks packed. We don't want you stressed. It'll be easier if it's just us this time." I stared at the message for 10 minutes, thumb hovering. Then I confirmed the transfer. They came back with new tans, new sunglasses, new stories about dolphin cruises I funded. Dad clapped me on the shoulder at Sunday dinner and said, "You really pulled through again." That was it. It wasn't just vacations. When the water heater burst in July, I got the call at 2 a.m. Dad Bob Hale, 58 and unemployed since the plumbing supply shop shut down, sounded half asleep. "It's flooding the basement," he said. I found a 24-hour plumber, paid $1,200 over the phone, and drove over at dawn to sign the work order. Mom Lori Hale, 55, stood in the kitchen in her robe clutching coffee. "You're a blessing," she whispered. Then she went back to bed. Jaden's credit card, the one I added him to as an authorized user, started showing charges I didn't recognize. A new gaming console, 3 AAA titles, an ergonomic chair with lumbar support, $2,100 in 4 months. I printed the statement, highlighted every line, and left it on the kitchen counter before work. That night, Aunt Nan, 52 and over for meatloaf, saw it first. She laughed so hard she snorted. "Kids these days," she said, ruffling Jaden's hair. He smirked, didn't look up from his phone. Dad changed the channel to the Reds game. Mom refilled my water glass like nothing happened. I tried once. Just once. Over lasagna, I said, maybe Jaden could pick up seasonal work at the Amazon warehouse. They're hiring. Silence. Then Aunt Nan again. He's in a transition phase. Dad grunted. Mom passed the garlic bread. Conversation over. So when Dad pushed past me into my apartment that night, windbreaker rustling eyes bloodshot, I wasn't surprised. He didn't sit. He paced. The airline won't budge, he started. Hotel either. Everything's non-refundable. We need $5,000 to cover the cancellations, Dakota. You can't just pull the rug out like this. I stayed by the door, arms crossed. I didn't pull anything. You booked it on my card. His boots thudded against the floor. Your mother's devastated. She's been planning this for months. She planned it without me. Again. He stopped in front of the TV, hands on hips. Jaden's crushed. He was going to propose to that girl down there. I almost laughed. With what ring, Dad's jaw tightened. This isn't about gratitude. This is about family. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and turned the screen toward him. 3 years of transfers. Airlines, hotels, utilities, plumber, Jaden's card. This is what family looks like to you. He glanced at it, then away. Nobody held a gun to your head. No, I said. You just counted on me not having a spine. The room went quiet. Outside, snow started to fall past the window. Dad rubbed the back of his neck. We'll scrape it together somehow, he muttered. But you're making a mistake. I opened the door. Cold air swept in. Good night, Dad. He stepped into the hallway, paused, and said over his shoulder, You're destroying everything we built. I closed the door. Locked it. Blocked his number before the latch clicked. Mid-January brought the first real snow. Mom launched a GoFundMe titled Emergency Family Vacation Relief. The story described sudden airline policy changes and non-refundable deposits, asking for $5,000 to save the trip. No mention of who originally paid. No mention of me. The cover photo was an old picture, the four of them on a beach, smiling beneath a sunset I never saw. I read it during my lunch break, scrolled through the updates, and donated $1 anonymously. Caption: lesson learned. 2 days later, my older brother texted from a new number: AC units dead. Need $400 for a window unit. I'll pay you back when the tax return hits. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over reply. Instead, I blocked the number, deleted the thread, and cleared the notification. That same evening, Paxton Lane 30, the only person who ever checked on me without an agenda, called while I was microwaving leftovers. My family's heading to Hocking Hills this weekend, he said. Cabins booked months ago. Come with us. You need trees and 0 cell service. I hesitated. He added, no pressure, but my dad already bought extra steaks. I said yes. We left Friday after work. Paxton drove his truck. I rode shotgun with a duffel in the back. The cabin sat clustered near Old Man's Cave, wood smoke curling from chimneys as we pulled in. His dad, Mr. Lane 60, still running the garage downtown, greeted me with a firm handshake and a cooler of beer. You're on grill duty tomorrow, he said, handing me the tongs like it was already decided. His mom, Mrs. Lane 57, retired from teaching middle school, pulled banana bread from the oven the moment we walked in. Paxton said you like it with walnuts. She smiled, slicing a piece before I could reply. Saturday morning, we hiked to Ash Cave. Rhett Lane, 35. Paxton's cousin, who managed a software firm in Columbus, fell into step beside me on the trail. He asked about my last project rollout, the one that had kept me up for weeks. I gave the short version. He nodded, kicked a pebble, and said, We're expanding the PM team. Hybrid role, good pay. Send your resume Monday. I'll flag it. I thanked him. No promises, just an opening. Back at camp, mister. Lane showed me how to season the steaks: salt, pepper, a little garlic powder, then stepped aside so I could flip them. Mrs. Lane laid out sides: potato salad, corn on the cob, and banana bread for dessert. We ate at a picnic table under string lights, plates balanced on our knees. Paxton passed me a beer without asking. Rhett talked about a new client. Mr. Lane told a story about fixing a transmission in a blizzard. No one asked about money. No one laughed at anything I said. Sunday on the drive home, I checked the GoFundMe again. $680 raised. The campaign had auto-closed for inactivity. I closed the tab and watched the hills fade away in the rearview mirror. Monday morning started with notifications. Mom had left 20 missed calls between midnight and 6 a.m., each one followed by a voicemail that began with sobs and ended with pleas. I played the first while brewing coffee. Her voice cracked through the speaker, begging me to call back, saying the whole trip was ruined and she didn't know how to face the neighbors. The second voicemail was shorter, just crying. By the 10th, she sounded hoarse, repeating that I was tearing the family apart. I deleted them all without responding. Dad's single voicemail came in at 7:30, right as I stepped out of the shower. His tone was sharp, no greeting. Pick up the phone and transfer the money now. This isn't a game. He hung up before I could hit play on the next. I saved it, then archived the thread. My older brother sent 3 texts in a row from another new number. You're seriously insane. Everyone hates you right now. Fix this or don't bother coming around again. I read them on the subway platform, slipped the phone back into my coat, and boarded the train. No reply. I listened to every message during my commute, earbuds in volume low enough that no one else heard. Mom's tears, Dad's commands, my brother's threats. They looped in my head like background noise to the city waking up. By the time I reached the office, the calls had stopped. Silence felt heavier than the shouting. Rhett had emailed over the weekend with a calendar invite for 10 a.m. The interview was virtual, 30 minutes, 3 people on the panel, including him. I logged in from a conference room camera on Notes Ready. They asked about stakeholder management on tight deadlines, how I handled scope creep, and what tools I used for agile tracking. I answered without pausing, drawing from the project that kept me home last Christmas. Rhett nodded along, typed something, then asked if I preferred hybrid or fully remote. I said hybrid. The call ended with a casual, "We'll be in touch by end of week." Days settled into a rhythm. I drove to the office Tuesdays and Thursdays, worked from the spare room the other days. Paxton left for his coding stand-ups at 8, came home with grocery bags and stories about buggy features. We cooked together, argued over playlists, fell asleep on the couch during movies. No one asked for money. No one scheduled trips without me. Mornings felt quiet in a way that didn't ache. June arrived with humidity thick enough to taste. An old co-worker from my first job messaged me one Tuesday while I waited for a build to deploy. She still lived 2 blocks from the brownstone and had seen the foreclosure notice taped to the front door. The bank gave them 30 days after 3 missed mortgage payments. I read the text, forwarded it to spam, and went back to my code review. 2 weeks later, the same friend sent a photo from her run a moving truck parked out front, Dad directing 2 guys in red shirts as they carried out the leather recliner he bought the year I paid off his truck loan. Mom stood on the sidewalk holding a box labeled kitchen, fragile, her face turned away from the camera. The brownstone looked smaller somehow, the brick faded, the steps cracked where Jaden used to sit playing handheld games I funded. They ended up in a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of Cincinnati, the kind with thin walls and a shared laundry room in the basement. I knew the complex. Paxton and I had looked at units there before deciding on the house. The rent was cheap, utilities included, but the deposit required proof of income. Mom's part-time cashier job wouldn't cut it alone. Jaden started night shifts at the Amazon Fulfillment Center off I-75. The schedule ran 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 4 days on, 3 off. He posted a story once, a blurry selfie in a safety vest caption, "Adulting sucks," with a skull emoji. His follower count had dropped since the vacation drama. The gaming friends stopped tagging him in clips. I saw it because Paxton still followed him out of curiosity. I didn't. No one reached out. Not a text on my birthday in April. Not an email when the new job hit 90 days, not even a forwarded chain message about prayer requests. My inbox stayed clean, except for work threads, and Rhett's occasional memes about project deadlines. Mom's number remained blocked. Dad's too. Jaden tried once from a work phone, left a voicemail asking if I could spot him gas money until payday. I deleted it unheard. I didn't ask either. No drive-bys past the old neighborhood, no searches for the apartment address, no late-night scrolls through Aunt Nan's profile for updates. The silence worked both ways. Paxton noticed the shift without me saying much. He came home one Friday with a six-pack and a printout of cabin availability for Labor Day weekend. Same spot in Hocking Hills, he said, sliding it across the counter. Mr. Lane already claimed the big grill. I booked it that night. The brownstone sold at auction in August to a flipper who painted the door teal and listed it for double what my parents owed. I saw the listing on Zillow during a coffee break, recognized the kitchen backsplash I paid to install after a pipe burst. Closed the tab. Jaden's shifts turned permanent. He moved into the apartment's living room curtain hung from the ceiling for privacy. Mom picked up extra hours at the store. Dad applied for warehouse jobs, but kept getting passed over for younger applicants. The cycle spun without me in it. I ran into a high school friend at the grocery store near our new house. She asked about the family, eyes wide with secondhand gossip. I shrugged, said I hadn't kept up, and changed the subject to her kids' soccer schedules. She didn't push. By fall, the apartment complex posted a vacancy in the unit below theirs. I drove past once on the way to a client site, saw Jaden's beat-up sedan in the lot exhaust pipe patched with duct tape. The engine coughed when he started it for his shift. I kept driving. Labor Day weekend rolled in clear and cool. Paxton had reserved the same cluster of sites in Hocking Hills for the third year, running the ones with the gravel loop and easy access to Cedar Falls. Trucks and SUVs lined up by noon coolers, unloading kids chasing frisbees between tents. Mr. Lane backed his pickup into spot 4, popped the tailgate, and pulled out a brand new 6-person tent still in the box. He waved me over before I finished unstrapping our bags. "This one's lighter than last year's," he said, ripping open the plastic. "Let me show you the quick setup poles." We laid the fabric flat, slid the fiberglass rods through sleeves, and raised the frame in under 10 minutes. He adjusted the rainfly with practice snaps, then stepped back to admire the dome. "Your turn next time," he added with a grin. Mrs. Lane had packed a separate cooler just for me, labeled in her neat cursive on blue tape. Inside, turkey sandwiches on sourdough carrot sticks with hummus. 2 slices of the peach pie she baked that morning because I mentioned once it was my favorite. She handed it over as I organized the folding chairs. "No onions in yours," she said quietly, like it was the most natural thing. Red arrived mid-afternoon with a folding table and a stack of laptops in a backpack. He sat up under the awning plugged into the truck's inverter and waved me over once the burgers hit the grill. "Company's rolling out a new product line," he explained between flips of meat. "Need someone to guide the junior PMs through certification. Part-time remote extra cash." Interested, I asked about the timeline. He said fall launch, flexible hours. I told him to send the details. The afternoon blurred into hikes and cornhole games. Mr. Lane taught me how to tie a taut line hitch for the tarp. Mrs. Lane refilled my water bottle without asking. Rhett challenged Paxton to axe throwing Lost on purpose and bought the next round of sodas. No one mentioned budgets or favors. No one smirked when I spoke. Conversation stayed on trails, recipes, the upcoming football season. As dusk settled, we gathered around the fire pit. Logs cracked sparks rising into a sky thick with stars. Paxton passed marshmallows on sticks, showed me how to toast them slow for the perfect char. Mrs. Lane pulled out a blanket when the breeze picked up. Rhett asked about my latest sprint retrospective. Mr. Lane wanted to know if the new grill brush worked better than the old one. Simple questions, no strings. Later, when the kids had gone to bed and the fire burned low, I stared into the embers and spoke without planning. "My old family used to plan trips around what I could pay for," I said. "Then leave me out." The words came flat, matter of fact. Paxton shifted closer on the log arm around my shoulders. "This is your family now," he murmured. "Right here." Mr. Lane poked the fire, sending up a fresh shower of sparks. Mrs. Lane reached across and squeezed my knee. Rhett nodded, once eyes on the flames. No one asked for more details. No one needed them. We stayed up until the coals glowed red, talking about nothing and everything. Paxton traced circles on my back. The night wrapped around us like the blanket Mrs. Lane had draped earlier. The following Labor Day arrived with a chill that hinted at early frost. We returned to Hocking Hills for the annual trip, the sights now familiar like old friends. Paxton had upgraded the group reservation to include a larger fire ring and extra picnic tables. Everyone pitched in from the start. Mr. Lane hauled firewood, Rhett set up the portable speaker with a playlist of classic rock, Mrs. Lane unpacked coolers of marinated chicken and fresh corn. I helped string lanterns between trees, the glow soft against the deepening blue of evening. Dinner finished with s'mores and laughter. The kids roasted marshmallows until their sticks caught fire, then ran off to chase fireflies. Adults lingered on logs, passing a bottle of bourbon someone had brought. Paxton stood first, brushed crumbs from his jeans, and walked to the center of the circle. He cleared his throat once the sound cutting through the crackle of flames. "Dakota," he began, voice steady. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. The firelight caught the ring inside a simple solitaire on a thin gold band. "You've made every ordinary day better since the first weekend here. Will you marry me?" The group went quiet. I felt the heat of the fire on my face, the weight of eyes on me. I nodded before words came. "Yes." He slid the ring on, stood, and kissed me while applause broke out. Mr. Lane let out a whoop. Rhett snapped a photo on his phone. Mrs. Lane dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Later, when the excitement settled, Mrs. Lane approached with a wrapped package the size of a book. "For you two," she said, pressing it into my hands. Inside was a framed print the group shot from our very first Hocking Hills weekend, the one where Mr. Lane handed me tongs and Mrs. Lane baked banana bread. We stood in front of Ash Cave, arms around each other, smiling like we belonged. "Thought you'd want this for the new house," she added. I hugged her tight. That night, back in our tent, I opened my phone one last time. Contacts app first. Mom, Dad, Jaden, Aunt Nan deleted. Photos next, vacation albums from years past, birthday dinners, the brownstone porch gone. Email threads archived and trashed. Social media follows, unfollowed messages archived. The screen went blank, except for Paxton's name and the new family group chat. I powered off, zipped the phone into a side pocket, and slept without dreams. Dad still works odd jobs when he can find them, patching roofs for cash under the table. Mom added weekend shifts at the store, her feet swollen by closing time. Jaden moved up to forklift operator at the warehouse, mandatory overtime, keeping him away from screens. The apartment lease renewed under their names alone. No one reached out for holidays or emergencies. The lesson stuck: dependence without respect collapses when the source walks away. You don't owe anyone your future just because you share a past. Walking away is sometimes the only way they learn. Thank you for staying with me through every step of this story. If any part resonated, drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done differently? Share with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. See you in the next one.